Hey, welcome to the broadcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, and we're doing another live stream over the Virginia State Real Estate Examination questions. That's right. It's a lot of stuff, isn't it? We're approved in several states at Global Real Estate School, and one of the things we're trying to do is put together some specific state short, concise videos to help people pass the state exam. Now, we have all of the state content you will go throughout our course, but these are great videos you can take with you, watch on your phone, listen in your car, and just help relearn the information, continue to study the information. And of course, we hear from so many students who unfortunately didn't know about Global Real Estate School, but came to us and we helped them pass the exam. And you know what? They are telling other people about Global Real Estate School. So we're picking up traction in some of these states that we have been approved for just a short time. And Virginia is one of those states. We'd love to have your business. So we want to help you learn more about the state examination. Well, I want to go right over to the display here and actually pull up my display for you so we can take a look here. We're going over the Virginia state material, and we ended right here on section B. We actually covered on yesterday's broadcast, we covered this area right here, the broker supervision requirements. Actually thought I'm going to go back here to 10. I thought I had my highlighter up. We've already covered that, so you can watch that on a separate video. But what we're going to cover now is the disciplinary procedures and sanctions. And I just want to remind you that the way this broadcast is set up and what we're doing, and we are doing in all of our states, some of the states I actually create what is called a cheat sheet video, and we're not cheating, but I'm taking the test application, I'm taking the actual test booklet. In fact, I could go right over here, and let's just do that because I actually have that. I have this new interactive board, so why not use it, right? So I'm going to pull up the downloads, and I thought I had that right here. See, I do that occasionally, and I wish that I would not try that, but I thought I had Virginia. Maybe it's in my Dropbox. Let's take a look over here very quickly. There it is, right there. Hopefully you can see this. So I'm going to just kind of bring this over. What we're doing is, this is the candidate handbook from PSI. And just want to kind of show you what we're going over so it'll make sense to you. We're actually going over right down here, licensing. I'm here at the top right here, the licensing for salespersons and brokers. There are, for salespersons exam, there are 8 items from this section. Brokers, you have 13. But you can see we did 1A yesterday. We're actually working on 1B, which is disciplinary procedures. So I'm going to come back over here, and you can see this is what we are going to cover today. So this section here and yesterday's section are right out of the license law that we just kind of took a look at right there. So it's right out of here. I want to try something. Well, we'll come back over here. Okay, so we're going to jump down here. Shouldn't be a real long broadcast today. I'm trying to keep these short and kind of focused, but we're looking here at this specific section on the display, which tells us the Virginia Real Estate Board is responsible for not only giving you and I a license, certifying us as brokers and salespersons and firms, you can see there, but the compliance and investigative division, or what they call the CID. I definitely know this wording right here of the Virginia DPOR. It reviews complaints, make a note of that, filed against licensees. A received licensure from the real estate board. So a license is an entity such as a broker, salesperson, or firms that have received licensure from the Virginia board. Now, when we talk about receives complaints, as a real estate licensee, if you do something that jeopardizes a consumer, or you violate the license law, the consumer, the consuming public, the consumers or the public, there we go, or even other licensees, your broker, the local board association. I've seen complaints filed against real estate licensees for a number of reasons. Not just because they disliked a person, but if they felt that a license law was violated, or something, should not have been followed correctly, naturally, sometimes that's what we should do, is report that to the Real Estate Commission. After all, it's their job then to look into this, because they need to safeguard the public's interest, right? Perhaps you know of a situation or an event that happened, and you want to file a complaint against that licensee, you can do so, and it will now go to, as you can see here, the CID, the Compliance and Investigative Division. They will review the complaint, and they'll take action in some manner or form, as we will see. Now, if the CID, and again, that is the Compliance and Investigative Division, as you can see here, if they find probable cause for a violation of any laws or regulations, then an investigation begins. All right? So I file a complaint against a licensee. The CID reviews it, and if they see that a probable cause has been violated, they're going to then initiate a full-fledged investigation. If any violations have taken place, then the licensee must appear at an informal fact-finding conference, IAFF. In some cases, a consent order may be issued before the IAFF is held. In other words, they may request you or subpoena documents, or require, send that, making you appear at a certain date and time. Now, as we move on down here, when the IAFF, and who's the IAFF? Informal. The IAFF is the Informal Fact-Finding Conference. If it finds, when an IAFF does take place, the hearing officer makes a recommendation for sanctions to the board. The board will review the violations and recommended sanctions and may administer any of the following sanctions. They could do monetary penalties. They could suspend or revoke the license. They could make you go on probation. They could make you take additional education or continuing education. They could send you back to real estate school. They could deny your license or not renew it. And the licensee if the licensee has committed the violations, is allowed to continue with their broker practice so long as the board does not suspend or revoke the license. So, you can kind of keep that in mind. They can continue unless there's suspension or revocation. Now, something that's important for us to understand right here is, and this is similar in many states where I teach, have our real estate courses, especially in Missouri, but in Virginia, notice that the IAFF has a hearing officer who makes a recommendation. So the hearing takes place, and if there's a violation, they're going to send it back over to who? The board, the real estate board, and they're going to make a recommendation and possibly sanctions, any of these. But notice here, I'll highlight, it's the board's going to review those violations and recommendation sanctions, and they are then going to decide what will we actually do. So I think it's important for you to understand that although the hearing recommends sanctions and possible education, maybe revoke their license, perhaps the hearing panel just says, the officer comes back and says, look, we believe there was this violation. We think not only should they be fined, but you probably need to make them go back to real estate school again. The board could actually say, you know what, we're going to take monetary sanctions against them, but we're going to actually revoke their license or suspend it for 3 years. So it's the board that can actually make the final say-so, and just keep that in mind as we go through some of these. Now, moving on to the next slide, actions that constitute improper dealing include offering real property for sale or for lease without the knowledge and consent of the owner or the owner's authorized representative, or on any terms other than those authorized by the owner or the owner's authorized representative, and placing a sign on any property without the consent of the owners of the property or the owner's authorized representative. You might say, well, gosh, John, that's pretty no-brainer. How about this, though? Just a month ago, had one of my clients, they found a home they really liked. He texted me. He said, go on and put a sign up in our front yard. Let's get our house up for sale, and gave me the price they wanted to list it for. Did I do that? No. I texted him back and said, what time do you get off work? I need to come by and get room measurements and get your signatures on a listing agreement. You can't advertise a property that you don't have a written authorization, right? Now, I'm always telling my agents this. It's the one that you let slide just a little bit that will come back and haunt you. So you can see here, there are lots of times agents violate this specific part of the law. Now, here's another example that I just want to bring up to you and have you think about. What if you have a listing, it expires on September the 1st, you do not go out and pick up your for sale sign. On September 2nd, somebody drives up and, or let's just say the real estate commission's in town, or somebody investigates, or the seller's really mad at you now over some goofy thing, and you've still got a sign in the yard for a couple of days after it expired. Are you in violation of this specific part? Absolutely. Because you have a sign on a property without the consent. It's expired. So there are things that you just have to keep in mind and remember and follow, that if you don't, those are the ones that might come back and be a red flag for you. So keep that in mind, and don't let those types of issues cause you some heartburn in the future. Causing any advertisement for sale, rent, or lease to appear in any format or medium without including in the advertisement the name of the firm or the sole proprietorship. You cannot advertise a property We call that a blind ad. You will see that on the real estate exam. That will be a question. So anytime you run an ad, you need to make sure that the broker's name, phone number, and that you are identified, your company, so that the buying public, there's no unfair competition. It's not a blind ad. They know they're dealing with a real estate brokerage. Social media and a lot of these issues come off very iffy in those areas. So I'm just kind of forewarning you, anytime you advertise a property for sale or you post it on social media, make sure that you include the brokerage name and phone number. Make sure the public knows they're dealing with a real estate brokerage. Very, very important for you to do. Offering to pay or paying a transaction-based fee or fees or valuable consideration to anyone who is what? Not licensed in this or any other jurisdiction. You got to be licensed. If you accept a commission, fee, or other valuable consideration as real estate salesperson or associate broker for any real estate services from any person or entity except the licensee's principal broker or supervising broker at the time of the transaction. Let me tell you a story that I had one time. Lady worked for me, and we were, it was the end of the year, first of the following year, and it was awards time, and the board was giving out awards, and this particular lady who worked for me was short just a little bit of money when I did all the calculations. And I said, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, you just missed getting this higher award that she should have gotten. And she was a good friend of mine, did a lot of things for me. I trusted her immensely. And she said to me, well, can I look at the list? As she started looking at the list and she was going through it, and she said, oh, I think there was a transaction I had over at such and such, and it's not on here. And I said, well, I don't have that transaction. And she said, they were selling it on their own, and they wanted me to handle it for them, and they just paid me $250. Now, you might say, well, $250? Well, I got to looking and investigating into that. By the way, the lady was no longer with me, okay? Because, once someone violates that trust, regardless of what kind of a producer they are, you don't need to keep them on the team. There's a culture you have in your organization, in your office. Well, you can probably fill in the blanks. There was a closing statement. It had Mayfield Real Estate's name on it. There were forms that were used, and lo and behold, she ran that, and the check was issued, but I never saw that, and it was cashed, and that would have put her over getting the other award, but it also really put her in a different light in my own mind of someone that, gosh, for that small amount of money, to not tell me that there was a closing. And, had she come to me, I would have gladly let her have that whole $250. It wasn't about that. It was the principle. That really is a violation. She had forms in there, but I guess what I'm trying to say, it wasn't a violation so much of the license law. It was a violation of the trust with me as her broker. And as I mentioned, she's no longer with me. But could you see how someone in an office could maybe close a transaction and they get paid directly from the owner and not their supervising broker? Those are grounds for disciplinary procedures. So just want you to be aware of that. And that story to remind you of the fact that you shouldn't do those types of things. Again, we can see here, if you're receiving financial benefit from the use of any information about the property, the transaction, or the parties to the transaction, when the information is gained as a result of the performance of acts specified in Chapter 21. We'll talk about that later, without the prior consent of the licensee's broker. In other words, what this is really, what we're going to talk about later, and we talk about this in agency, but if you know information about something and you don't disclose that to your client, those are grounds for disciplinary procedure. And there's lots of examples I could give you. Maybe you knew of a price of an offer they accepted and that contract fell through, and then you turned around and told a potential buyer or another agent who's not representing your client, yeah, we already had an offer for X number of dollars and they took that. Or perhaps you tell someone that confidential information your client has given you. You can't do that. So make sure that you don't fall into those situations. And then receiving financial benefit from any person or other than the licensee's principal broker at the time of the transaction. Again, we'll go through that as well. All of these talk about advantageous situations for you as an agent, and you're not following your agency relationship. You can't take a net return or what we call a net listing to the seller, leaving the licensee free to sell or list the property at any price. What they mean here is this: if the seller says to you, well, all I want's $100,000, John, anything above that you can keep, and you go out and sell the property for $200,000. So, you're actually pocketing $100,000. You can't do that. There has to be, commissions are negotiable, but you need to have a set commission, whether it's 6, 7, 10, 20, or $500. Commissions are negotiable between, we study that in the listing portion and the agency portion, but net listings, you cannot do that. And again, that would be grounds for disciplinary procedures and sanctions. So there's many of these other types of situations. We'll be covering these as we go through the state material. I hope you find this helpful. I want to kind of just break this up in smaller chunks and go through the outline so that you can see what are some type questions that I might see from this section. So we'll try to pull a few questions in on our next broadcast just to see how well you know the material here, and then keep moving forward for those of you from Virginia. Now, don't forget, we would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also do national content. So there's playlists, there's lots of information. You can find out more at globalrealestateschool.com. Lots of great things. We're on Instagram. We have a Facebook page. We even have a news flash briefing on Amazon. You can say, hey, she's over on my desk there. So if I say, hey, you know her name from Amazon, give me Global Real Estate School's flash briefing, she'll give you that. Okay, we've got a great podcast. We are almost at 80,000 downloads. People love the podcast because they can listen while they're exercising in their car and so forth. And of course, we're right here on YouTube. Do not forget to subscribe. Click the bell. That way you'll be notified whenever we go live. And tell others about us. globalrealestateschool.com. Virginia state material. I'm excited. I'm enjoying it. And I hope you are too. If you are taking the Virginia real estate examination, hopefully these will help you pass the test. Hey, go out and make it a great day and tell others in Virginia and other states about Global Real Estate School. Have a great day.